So there was a question from yesterday, and those in the in the second review class, you remember that we were discussing this. So the question that came up is about the mistaken engagements. We were talking about the 3 mistaken engagements, and Mipa Rinpoche emphasizes those when discussing the seeing of the truth of suffering, and then he doesn't elaborate on those anymore with regard to the other truths. And that's why it's really something that we might have some doubts about, because Rinpoche does not speak about them anymore afterwards in detail. And actually, I was waiting for a question about this to come up. I was like, maybe this was already asked, maybe this is still coming. I was waiting for a question like that, and here it is exactly. So the question is how this applies then for the other truths, and whether that has the defilements that I identified as the wrong engagement, the mistaken engagement in the real, the mistaken engagement in the awareness, and induced mistaken engagement, whether that applies equally, like in the same breakdown to the other truths as well. And so we find the answer to that in some of the bigger commentaries. So for example, in the outer commentary on the Abhidhamma Kosha, every single seeing of the truth is discussed in light of the mistaken engagements, or how the mistaken engagements relate to that, which of the defilements are which mistaken engagement, and also in a few other commentaries on the kosha and so on, we find this spelled out in detail. And so we can look at those. Generally, of course, the 3 mistaken engagements, this presentation of the 3 mistaken engagements applies to all the truths, to identify all of those. So which ones are discards to the truth of suffering, the truth of origin, the truth of cessation, and the truth of the path. And we can really investigate which of the disturbing emotions constitutes which of the mistaken engagements. So for the truth of suffering, we said that the view of the transitory collections, holding extreme views and wrong views, together with ignorance and doubt, are the mistaken engagement in the real. They constitute mistaken engagement in the real, manner of the truth of suffering. And so when we then look at how this is described in the Abhidhamma Kosha, or in its commentaries for the truth of origin, then out of those 5 that are mistaken engagement in the real for the truth of suffering, actually not all of them apply to the truth of origin. So out of those, the grasping to the transitory collections falls away. And and the extreme views. So out of those 5 mistaken engagements in the real that we have seen in the truth of suffering, the transitory collections and the extreme views are not discards on the path of seeing, on the discards when perceiving the truth of cessation. And so they fall out, but the other three similarly apply to the truth of cessation here as mistaken engagements in the real. So we would still have wrong views, doubt, and ignorance as the mistaken engagements in the real nature of the truth of suffering when seeing the truth of not suffering, origin now, origin. So when we were discussing those in relation to the truth of suffering, we said that the constituting defilements, the constituting a misinterpretation of how that which is connected to the aggregates is, so misinterpreting that and the nature of the truth of suffering. Now here the defilement that they constitute in relationship to the truth of origin is the connection to karma and afflictive emotions. So because there are a misinterpretation, so wrong views, ignorance and doubt are a misinterpretation, or ignorance is a misinterpretation of the truth of origin. Therefore, then there are the defilements that constitute a mistaken engagement in the real. Then for the mistaken engagement in the awareness, the holding and the discipline and rituals as paramount falls away. So there then we still have desire, conceit, and holding views as paramount as the mistaken engagement in the awareness. And then in the end, the induced and mistaken engagement stays the same. That's still anger.
사제 규규단 되우니 나네 사제 규차인 바래 사제 규차 된줄라 네 마리바다 대좀다 로버다와다 다된조 차도로 뭐술로슈 디 규네는 데라 도장가장 된조되니 로버로슈 차소와 다디 나신체네 당 고발라제 고발고 지버지냐인 바 고로 망용 개발 가면 봐 뭐술로슈양 수면바 로발로슈양 수면바 한 왕글로슈 공로직인바 망용다 장갑 지바래 다 율데 면도와 샤송와 당 고바스디 동알 규제레 탈위 차지라 무슨 지기 요래 다 동알 규제지 차지 요래서 다 된졸라 아니 가서래 아니 로버타와당 아니 된조지 차 마리바다 된데 요네면에 대좀 싸워든 것을 로슈래 안텔 텐데지 타와텔라 는 타와당 대좀당 된졸라니 신신 차바든 러자레데레 디로 남자들 소소지 가서 퇴바 삼발라서 쇼shum버제 된서 삼마모마다 딩에 내로 양다고 또바이 냐뭐 나잘처로와 또 나잘처 용그래라 디 균디 너가 체로 두바데 타와초zen 차도고 이래 어디는 고바양 어디는 러주레스 아니 공존에 왕기 로주인데 된 버든 지부치송 인사래.
So the truth of origin is the cause for the defiling. So the cause of the causal defilements of karma and afflictive emotions. And when we look at the ignorance with regard to that truth of origin, then that's really the mistaken engagement in the truth itself, in the real, the engagement in the real, in the actual truth of origin, but in a mistaken way. So, like the truth of cessation then, actually enumerates the same number and the same list of disturbing emotions as the discards. And they also equally distribute throughout the 3 mistaken engagements, as we have seen with the truth of origin. But the way that they function as such is a little bit different, because the cessation actually constitutes the freedom from suffering and its causes, karma and afflictive emotions. So we have the same 3 mistaken engagements, and the real being the wrong views, ignorance, and doubt. And we have the same 3 mistaken engagement in the awareness, which are desire, conceit, and holding view as paramount. And then we have equally 1 induced mistaken engagement, which is anger. But the object of those is different. So to have a wrong view with regard to the cessation or the becoming free of suffering and its causes is the wrong view, which is a mistaken engagement in the real. That then equally has to be applied to the other mistaken engagements in the real. So in the actual, directly engaging in the truth of cessation in the mistaken way. And then when one holds those kinds of views, or has these mistaken, has this ignorance, doubt with regard to the truth of cessation, and then holds on to that kind of idea, and develops attachment or grasping based on that, then that's the desire, which is a mistaken engagement in the erroneous. And then if one, for example, thinks that oneself is so great because even though one has not really studied and reflected a lot, has not really understood the truth of cessation, still thinks one has attained great attainment, then that's pride, and also the thought of the view that I have here, the understanding of the cessation is the supreme one, even though one hasn't studied, one hasn't contemplated and meditated on it enough. That's then the mistaken engagement in the erroneous, which is holding the view as paramount. And then anger is again the same, this induced mistaken engagement.
아니 다 시바 람덴 알레 로베라 람덴야다 동알당 또 군중석으로 디 녀버겨 받들라 람지된 버스리로와 근데 동알기 규 군중내도 녀모석인데 자원인의 방에서 근데 연나 면나되는 가서 대중사기 열에 된적이 된 마도바 용구열에 바다데라니 된대지다 요크라 요 말해서 로바다와엔 그렇게 쓰기열에 아니 다 디딩 거서 로주인 바제 로바 로주다 된대지는 다오들이야 도장가절 다오초든 담아 술림 도주 조정에 용조거다 송거에 메모는 제기다 대 람덴시베 가서 따다 송도아 람덴 통화 방자라 좀베던다 람 로바라 양도다 다와 대 예방자인 술림 도주 조정장 방저들베 개도 조도 선대시베 가서 로바 로슈 임바데 즉 싸우지 송도아 람야 yama lam yangda bala ni lobarta lam mayim bala lam yimbra shen ta didi ni karzore jedang loda jirwa dendre la ane chokdu sung ne rogba ina ta lobala loshu chadu yore loba loshu yimba desi saujin dele she yore ta dendre ji chile so ta di orang la ne kanong go lam khungro yang osu loshu yode go lam dela tang de yodo xiesarjang sungdoa kashi jige ta ngomba zojin jawa kashi nanglang gogba da lam dinzo la ngosu lo lokba lo shu ngosu lo shu ene wanggu lo shu sumna ne ngosu lo shu yore san dene sunga ya mungbu do sa inan din dene mare lokba lo shu mare ngosu lo shu mare ne de wanggu lo shu imba de jumzin chigba ra san Quran sawu shu shu sungna doa de indu ne tenpa xieja la lo shu sum danyam tate mangyung de Quran kaadu modu ba kanda sum jan roko go yoba di wa sik dinzo ji tada kwa lang tugara la zo ta ngomba zo ji nenga ba taji tenpi xebe kapsu teni dinzo kwa la yang sung yore tsawa Quran la tena salu chara kaya marwa jawa tang jawa kya shubu kashe lo sona dinzo kwa la sung yore
And then we have the truth of the path, which constitutes the antidote against karma, against suffering and its causes, its origin. And if we then think about the discards with regard to that, then to directly think about the path and be like, oh, is the path actually something that can get rid of suffering and its causes or not? It would be doubt and thinking, oh, the path cannot eradicate suffering and its origin. That would be then a mistaken view and so on. So we equally have the same kind of discards as the mistaken engagement in the real, in the actual truth, so in the truth of the path. And then also the same ones as we have seen previously will apply as the mistaken engagement in the awareness, apart from the fact that we add the holding, the discipline and ritual back. So we have 4 mistaken engagements in the awareness. So having a mistaken understanding, having mistakenly engaged in the truth of the path, then arise desire, conceit, and the 2 kinds of holding as paramount. And this is actually the fact that holding discipline and ritual to be paramount, to add this back in, Mipa Rinpoche actually spoke about in paragraph 81. As for the discards by means of seeing the truth of the path, in addition to those 7, since the belief in a mistaken path as perfect is precisely what is to be abandoned by this seeing, holding a discipline and ritual as paramount is also considered a discard. Thus 8 are described. So this actually describes particularly the situation with holding a mistaken path, holding a discipline or ritual as paramount, being a discard on the path when seeing the truth of the path, and accordingly being based on a mistaken engagement in the real, then it becomes a mistaken engagement in the awareness as well. So here we have to count it as one of these mistaken engagements in the awareness with regard to the truth of the path, making 4 again. And then anger is again an induced mistaken engagement, even though there are different opinions about it in different commentaries. We find different kind of opinions, but here according to the Kosha and the Abhidhamma Kosha Bhasha, the outer commentary, then it belongs to anger. So this is really how we clearly see that the 3 mistaken engagements need to be applied to all of the 4 noble truths, to the seeing of all 4 noble truths. And even though the number of discards that falls into each category might vary based on the truth and which are discards to that truth. The general principle has to be applied to all of them, and we can understand that in more detail when we look at the bigger commentaries on, for example, the Abhidhammakosha, where each of the truths is investigated and spoken about separately, individually, and analyzed with regard to the three mistaken engagements. And in the Abhidhammakosha, for example, we find it in the 5th chapter, that speaks about the defilements. So we would have to look that up, not in the root verses of the kosha, but in its commentary. That's it. So you can probably now recite the Majushe prayer.
Namandang Gombo Jedzun Jambe Yang Chanzan Lo Kange Lo Dru Jemye Jendra Nyeda Namda Ramzalwe Chenye Dungun Jeje Zejir Nije Dogale Bomb Anda Zebe Zera Mari Mundum Dongal Gezervi Rozo Gola Boje Darze Yelar Juju Yadezu Rodan Jero Nyomo Nilong Dege Jaro Dozeji Mare Monse Donganyu Chinye Jezer Aljena Dene Daje Zaju Dar Yune Lezo Jaze Doen Chudra Juda Chunye Gendri Tane Monse Jan Yalandu Omar Bazana Om Arabadana Seden Jeje Chera Wazirgi Alende Mombarabzani Adan Denju Sholo Dobai Lodre Bobe Nawa Zadoso Kanze Dawar Deba Chunse Jiwar Denaya Kombo Jamya Denini Keme Baryan Donwarashu Allah so tenin roar ru simjen thamje sanji ju bobang ru chen longo bar ki wo nyam bi kolongi domangon do tane sembar shu tande la sembar jawe chene me baram je sombe ni kenju ge shung de ni mare ta kenju ge shung de ni shu wala ne ju dom ji 소소 양다버에 봐 시유비나네 내주래 디나나다 제바 템발라케 바디 바래 아니 데 템바델라 템바시나네 군중게 템바디 슈셰바 인데 아니 가상게 트레드네 칼레 마슈기.
So, at the beginning of class, please give rise to bodhicitta, considering the welfare of all sentient beings, of the 6 classes of beings, and listen to the teachings with that kind of motivation. We're here in this class speaking about the Gateway to Knowledge, the text by Mipam Rinpoche, and since it generally is outlined by 3 main topics, the 10 topics of expertise, the 4 seals of Dharma, and the 4-fold correct discrimination, we discuss it in those lines, and from within the 10 topics of expertise, we have reached the 8th one, the topic of the truth, and with that, within those, after having completed already the truth of suffering, we're now concerned with the truth of origin, and we will continue from where we have left off yesterday.
Nöbe nyawar lemba soshi, sibe nyawar lemba soje, kamjum geta, tawa nyawar lemba sumju sada, tanga zere do, tanga neta, yakojini shugo wiki mare, kazam chinzarwa, che dun tawa konan kaga che mare batsum sama konan nyamdu lucha yorwa, los che me ba che du tawa, ta dende inju, nöbe nyawar lemba de, soshi tamba yoyosa, kazam tawa ni sula ten tawa kharanza sula ten yorwa ndobe nyawalemba soshi antene seba kam goma ni nyawalemba ni tumbe sobje ta di khazan tsi kyap sawa yindish yin rombe go ache ane kam zumje tawa nyawalemba sumju tawa sumju soju nane tawa chukdi mala lango go yoyo sumchare di chukdi ta di jigbo shushina dikidwa tawa chuk khande lango rasana do kam ji tawa ni so kam ge ni some kam ji ni re 다 간제나 삼성도로 다원이 수도는 직다당 로다당 줄림도 주초는 다워줘서 네가 나야래 그래서 내 말했어 그래 줄림도 주초는 지부 sollan 거래 줄림도 주초는데 아니 가서 그래 통방기 동할기 줄림도 주초는 지 아니 남기 줄림도 주초는 니 차서 와 아니 니 나가나서도 소감기한 나가나지니 소매기 가면 니 어찌되다 다워 쪽술랑 아니 셴바 다워 상만 거는 숨주나는 진심 바래 감숨기 다워 녀월은 뭐 숨주 술름도 주초진 녀월은 뭐쪽 다다 자소아 와 대단해 세바르 겨월은 미규 미지 아다디 대시 제신들서 어 근데 제가 자나게 다다 자도 그래.
So we are currently on page 136, paragraph 98 in the bottom part. So we are discussing the perpetuations, and it's about counting again. We're just calculating the numbers, so I don't have to go into too much detail about it because we have already done this several times now. It says here there are 34 types of perpetuation of desire, so it's a different number than we have seen before because it also includes ignorance, which in the perpetuations is included with the other perpetuations. 38 types of perpetuation of existence, 30 types of perpetuation of belief belonging to the 3 realms, and 6 types of perpetuation of holding a discipline and ritual to be paramount. So here now the discards that are taken separately are those that have to do with belief, and even excluded from those or enumerated specifically are the perpetuation of holding the discipline and or ritual to be paramount. So when we talk about the 30 discards that are perpetuations of belief, then this is the 36 usual perpetuations that are belief, but minus 6. And these 6 are the perpetuation of holding this discipline of ritual to be discipline or ritual to be paramount. So actually, this does not apply to the 2 types of holding as paramount, but the way that we need to understand these 6 beliefs that are the perpetuation of holding as paramount is there is the holding discipline and ritual to be paramount when that's the discard when seeing the truth of suffering, and there is the holding ritual and discipline as paramount, which is a discard when seeing the truth of the path. So this is 2 for the desire realm, 2 for the form realm, and 2 for the formless realms. And this is how we come to the 6 perpetuations of holding a discipline and ritual to be paramount that also need to be subtracted from the 36 views or beliefs to come to the 30 discards that are perpetuations of belief. Kembola, 계란 가장 데 되게 강게 직접들라 촉진 니가 니 요레스 라마송에 디 김발라 타와 촉진 수dum촉진당 타와 라소팔라 수dum촉진 디
디디
시고레스
타와 로가치고 김전에 시래 타와 촉진디 타와 코라나 타와 샴바든 냠도 루샤레 타와시 타와가 나네 타 코존이 다우다우도와 그거니 가가쳐서나 나 타와 샴방가든 저디 조선 다와이바 인용은에 뭐라 야보 선만다나 줄름도 주셔서나 타와 조선이 빼면서 다우여와 다우 유대스는 가가쳐 넌 줄름도 주셔서는 거라 로가데 타와 샴바선 냠도 샤비 돈다래 디인도네 타와 조선 콜라게지디 술나랑 신이래 병거래.
So, yesterday, and I just clarify this. So yesterday we spoke about the holding views as paramount and holding discipline and ritual to be paramount. And these are actually very, very closely related. They're very similar. And so here, when we take the holding discipline and ritual to be paramount separately, we actually naturally have to speak about the distinction between these 2 types of holding to be paramount. And this is how we got to the discussion that we had in the end yesterday, to explain that there's a subtle difference between them, even though they're very, very similar. There's a subtle difference between them, and because of the focus on holding view as paramount, then this falls into the category of the perpetuation of belief, and we're just taking the holding discipline or ritual to be paramount as a separate one. So while here in the perpetuations, the later one is taken separately, since they're in their essence so very similar, the holding views as paramount and holding discipline as paramount, we needed to have the discussion of what their main different constitutes of, and that's who is concerned with them. So that's why we had the discussion yesterday.
니 대단히 세비 니월림베 규임베지 녀렌 셰샤데스 나덴졸라 녀렌스 랍샤버레스 녀렌스디 tuma mai mi gyu lam gyu do jere ngazon de ji ke ta go go na singa dang saben da ka singa dang chu dang lu dang chue dang denzo che di gyu re de nyelen ji gyu mare ko ji gyu jere gyu zo de ka re la na de ko de da ne na de da ne rang ko do wa gyu zo de nyelen ji gyu de se ge shamba denzo len ko men na metab ji gyu yin na yang gyuzo de mare. Nazo jedang dodang samodana miji ge gowe na pama nipo de nyelen ge gyure. Ene jen ramana kaya nyongcho wa. Wadi na jindo seba la ge gi yu ngoma de wa tenzo. Ani ta nyomo ba jadang jebo tenzo re de yorwa. Ta kola ming me ra cho kawa ne tangpa ina ra. Jendu nyelen labu re esa. Seba la nyawar lemba seba tala 당도 라는데 뢰마당 바지 무튼에 균경을 제기요 봐 인상 년龄 해자데 라브레스 다들 림바 총면도 카카카가네 해보 거 봐도 돌지 삼발라 되네 거비 원기 요와 되다 저거이노다 거의 년齡도다 사바도다 추저 세컨도다 망보 남시 면도다 만나 소야 돼 아니 돌자제 감 면도 올라 되네 송자 버려서 나서
Yes. So they are called perpetuation because they are the cause of perpetuating rebirth in the cyclic existence. So why do we call these the perpetuations? Why do we speak about this perpetuation of desire, perpetuation of existence, perpetuation of belief, and the perpetuation of holding a discipline or ritual to be paramount? It's because these are the specific, special causes, the uncommon causes for rebirth within samsara. And how do we need to understand this specific cause or special cause here? When we take, for example, the planting for rice, then there are many different things that need to be in place. There's the soil, there's water, there is sunlight and warmth, and there's maybe fertilizer and so on. There are many different things that need to be present for the growing of the rice. But these are not the specific cause or the uncommon cause for the rice to rise. That one, so the perpetuating cause is then rice itself, or when we plant barley, it's the barley seed that's the cause. So while the other conditions are also indispensable, we definitely need them. There's no way to do without them. They are not the actual perpetuating cause or the uncommon cause. Only the seed or the rice or the barley, it would be that uncommon cause, which then makes the rice or a barley plant grow, even though all the other things are also necessary for it. In case of a human being, of a human child, then the parents would be the uncommon cause, the specific cause for the rebirth, or for the birth of the child. While there are many other conditions that need to be in place for a human being to live or to grow up, the parents are this immediate cause, or this special cause, the particular cause. And so for rebirth within cyclic existence, these four perpetuations are the causes that are definitely necessary. They are what actually perpetuates rebirth and makes a continuum be sustained of rebirths within samsara. And that's why we call them the perpetuations, because they perpetuate rebirth in cyclic existence. And then the next paragraph 1099, reads, these divisions are made in this manner because based on necessity in regard to the inclinations of the disciples. So just as we said, we saw now different stages, different kinds of explanations of the discards, different classifications. We spoke about the 4 perpetuations, but also the defilements, the rivers or bonds. And we do so, like all of these were here spoken about because it's necessary to address the different dispositions of different disciples or students.
So dandi ne ngomba jogi losul ji redo da ngomba kundu ji losul de de ma son na do ta di nga zo shipcha re re jina ro ko ya ka mi do ngomba zo jojo de sula char jana che bo ji ya re do a ni ba ngomba kong ma da na ye woni ka de ngomba kong me lu shir sha ne kong da ye wor de na ta de je sa bo sun an ka so re 주주르시 어데네 넬린 히드네 여వర్친님도나 제초를 해서 통금제 방자자 녀제라 도통 원복군도 로라 통람제 방 난공방 도드나 자든 휴사제요 봐 내라는 더 제된도 아니 되베 감들라 군제된 되베 감마도 바 감고만이라 nengo가 매봐 군지 준 nen고 바데 지버지 야래 준년에 아니 돈베 가서 자송 자동 숨주 소제 중와 대래다 된절을 여제 주고 유에서.
Okay, so we have now completed the discussion of those classifications in the Abhidhamma Kosha, and now we can also look at the same ones for the Abhidhamma Samuccaya. And here we don't really need to go into as much detail because the same kind of calculations as we have seen them in detail in the Kosha also apply then to the Samuccaya. If one wishes to make the above divisions based on the system of the higher Abhidhamma, then there are 138 when adding the 28 discards in the path of seeing and cultivation together with the 10 fetters of the realms of desire. So in our previous analysis, we saw that there are 128 discards according to the Abhidhamma Samuccaya on the path of seeing and cultivation. So addressing all three realms. And then we add 10 fetters to this list because they are the fetters of the desire realm. They don't apply to the form and formless realm, just as we have seen it previously in the Abhidhamma Kosha explanation. The 10 fetters apply to the desire realm, and therefore we only add 10, and then we have a total of 138 discards, and that we use as the basis for the divisions that we have seen already above as well.
Onda tele kana dele mari be saba chonga do be saba ngaji se be saba doni chung za da saba de la mari ba chonga gran chebuji yan yure do be saba de ngomba zo ina din ko thongbang de remda mongbo yungure kundu chebuji yan yure kala gamen do angop jungaji 감 고만데 스비스 하거든 든주더니 중조여레 돈베 인자도 숨주 소제 중그래서.
Of these, there are the 15 defilements of ignorance, 51 defilements of desire, and 72 defilements of existence. So when we look at the division into the 3 defilements, then this is similar to how we have seen it in Abhidhamma Kosha. First of all, there are 15 types of ignorance for the 3 realms, each of them having 5 discards that are ignorance. Then the defilements of desire are 51. This is a little bit different than the Kosha number because the defilements on the path of seeing are enumerated differently, as each of the truths receives 10, so has 10 defilements. The discards that are discarded when seeing the four truths. And so that's 51. And then similarly, according to the enumeration of the defilements of the higher realms, we have the defilement of existence, which here is then 72.
다나진다 추조라양 마리베 추조 정아 아니 다디 텐도네 따우 추조레주 디에톤도 더버체 유조르 녀르고 디에톤도네 수비 추조르 니슈자겐네 용도 네 자단 숨지 소제 차로고 지바 인사레.
And then also the same kind of calculation has to be done for the rivers. And there are 15 types of river of ignorance and bond of ignorance. 66. If we then add to these 15 types of river of ignorance, the 66 types of river of belief or bond of belief, and then we add to that the 29 types of river of desire and bond of desire, and the 28 types of river of existence and bond of existence. And then we again have the 138 defilements that are divided into these four rivers or bonds.
Nyerlen sumju soshi, sibi nyerlen sumju soke, tawo nyerlen ngaju ngashi, tako tawo mambule ko bari pa di che me ba, tenpa shile mama che me ba sama yindu, tawo nyerlen ngashi, tsulum tuju shozin nyawlen ba junyi su nguru osa.
Then if we look at the perpetuations, it says there are 34 types of perpetuation of desire, 38 types of perpetuation of existence, 54 types of perpetuation of belief. And the reason why here we have more perpetuations of belief than we had in the Abhidhammakosha analysis is because of the additional beliefs that relate to the truth. To the truths that have not been counted in the Abhidhammakosha. So the full number of the beliefs, and then the 12 of perpetuation of holding a ritual and discipline as paramount. Again, that makes then the entire list of 138 discards.
남당 망부제지 쪽지 내용 조성 가양 조성 버전에 니바 녀몽된다 봉준 랑외다 샤중 년보당 방윈도 셰바스의 레도 단 년보 봉준 외들에도와 대라 통외 방전니 녀몽 군당 남대 양답에 된라 신도도 녀몽 진지 다와라 송도와 제도다 단다지 nomba zödan kundi nina na yang de kundi jilu shirsha jana sona gudu zo jilu de nga zo chola yang shu chogro 통남 예방제다 딱 통남 예방자 대 용몽바 군다다 현진 니나네 군다 인세는데 단 뭔가 저군데 될라 잡으려 말해 군다 세고바데 당아서 낭나 가리 현재지 찾는도 제도로 와 근데 현지 kalba thomene ngana zonyam de yobedin jigda tarsin je tawo se la so bo nyomo bo den so chedi inje do go yore konbang ji choden no ma che do go yore konbang choden ne lenje ge ran shin re ana thonam thobe ka so nyomo bo lenje de so tsane pang ge mare be na ma den re a mare lenje pang sar ge mare tes ma go so cho gore la tes pang cho go yore lenje de me ba so thu go yo mare 고파연 고조 점주다 가시지다 매바샤스 그래 군다데 자면 저거 여바 인장 아니 가서 좀 뭐 군다 남 통로 방전은 녀먹보다 남대 송고받은 도생 말에 나서
Sorry. Okay. So we have now completed, or from one perspective, we have now completed this passage of all these calculations of the different discards. On the other hand, we haven't really completed the discussion of the discards, because now we're going to talk about how these are actually discarded. And here in our text, from within the tradition of the Abhidhamma Kosha and the Abhidhamma Samuccaya, actually Mipham Rinpoche follows the explanation from the Abhidhamma Samuccaya. And so he takes that as the basis of his explanation. That does not say that we can't also supplement that information with the information from the Kosha a little bit. But what is written here by Mipham Rinpoche takes the Abhidhamma Samuccaya as its basis. So paragraph 101 reads, in this respect, the discards by means of the path of seeing are all the imputed aspects of the disturbing emotions. So here it says that the discards that are abandoned on the path of seeing are the imputed discards, while there are also other ones that are the co-emergent or the inherent aspects of the disturbing emotions. So when we speak about the inherent or co-emergent disturbing emotions, then these are those that we have been habituated to since beginningless time, so like an underlying grasping to the self and so forth. Those are the subtler disturbing emotions that are being abandoned on the path of cultivation. They're fully abandoned on the path of cultivation, I have to say, because it does not say that they're not probably eliminated a little bit already on the path of seeing. It's not that they're not addressed at all on the path of seeing, but even though they might be partially abandoned on the path of seeing, their complete abandonment happens on the path of cultivation. So that's when it really comes to culmination and they're completely abandoned. And that's why we say that the co-emergent disturbing emotions are what is abandoned then completely on the path of cultivation. So there might be aspects that are already of those disturbing emotions that are already eliminated on the path of seeing, but their complete elimination will only happen on the path of cultivation. And so apart from that, what is really completely eliminated on the path of seeing are then these imputed disturbing emotions. So they're really that which is abandoned on the path of seeing. That's why it says here, discards by means of the path of seeing are all the imputed aspects of the disturbing emotions.
남대 양답에 돈라 신도도 녀몽 진게 따와 손샤도와 다 양답에 돈데 템바시네로 임바로와 템바시네로 디친 제마제 주는 마도 바제다 진줄로도 도바 로라고 그러와 신도도베 녀몽 진게 따와 손샤요레 nyumong chengi tawa ta tenzo kunda da lenji ni nanda dana kunda ji cha de la sunggo lu sana kande ko re sana ta dambi chue sana mendo temba she ne lu mayin bi ji ton de no zo nyam ba dang de la samlo dang wa dang de ga la shen de ro wi ani jigda thar da la so ba tawa nga bo de zo la ko tene yang nyumong chengi tawa san tenzo tre la la bu yore ko tene ju mo lo so na.
Yes, sir. That is to say, what is discarded is any disturbing emotion or subsidiary disturbing emotion which clings to a disturbed belief that conceptualizes the correct meaning as being something other, doubts it, holds it as a view, or wrongfully indulges in that belief. So, when we speak about these discards of the path of seeing, that are the imputed aspects of disturbing emotions, then these refer to everything that is based on something other than the correct view of the disturbing emotion. So on the path of seeing, the four truths are seen for what they are, so that the abiding mode of the four truths is understood and realized correctly, unmistakably, and completely. And so all other kinds of engagements with them that are and the disturbing emotions that are related to that or based on that mistaken understanding, then are the imputed aspects of the disturbing emotions. Or so to not understand the meaning of the Four Noble Truths, to base oneself on other views that contradict the true nature of the Four Noble Truths, and to fall into the mistaken beliefs, like the view of the transitory correction, wrong view, extreme views, and so on. So those kinds of misinterpretations of the nature of the Four Noble Truths and the disturbing emotions that relate to that are then the imputed disturbing emotions.
다 데로위 이제 따와 된줄라 셴바다 태존도 따위 내당 송당도아 더직 쪽진의 섬로다나 따위 내 세근데 강라샤고 보로지여레 뇽몽진기 따와 니 따위 내 인라 한 텔라 셴바다 태존당서나 시당 조당진나 된저도 주고 그래
리안께서는
따와라 태존당 가서 셴바다 태존당 따위 내당 rinpa tende chun sung nang duwa tsegi chidang chodang cheba ina kwa lang dang dang tende tena tezu nyongmung chingi tawa ni tawi ne yin la tela shenpa dang tela tezum dang tende roju donda di di roju kogre wana meba rumba che dang lobe yingyen dang papa tongme namji kaso nyongmung chingi tawa la shenpa dang tezum dang tawi ne san tsik tende peche dang shayarwa ngomba 대둔 진전나나 된대로지 베저당 단다 간데고도 다라 베저당 남기래라 아니 제라시에서 좀 나나야 되는 베저당 남기래선다 뭔베 저 상만나는 되는 송여래 원다디 시디 노르와레거선 되네야 말해 다디 쪽 망보지는 고알라인지네 고바차 좀 여래 송남고도 다 조금 망보 간데 고알란 게 유명되다 삼로당 교래도 다 된지 뇽몽진게 따와서는데 된지랑 이슈가 나라제 다 딜라 셴바 다 쪽진에 섬도나 다가랑라 셴바 대랑라 짐바 쇼바 안딘데 제제 다 텔라 태좀 스토지람나네 데이터 따와디 는 가서 그래 따위체 된조 당젤로 돈에 아니 양다 민내로 된조라 태좀 사오 삼제 아니 된조 내로라 때네 아니 가서 그래 내로 따서 율 태좀다 셴바지 율 가르니 바다 따오네나 태좀 저 라브레데 야가칸라 따와지 라브레 타디 사시 양부 하고야치도 올라드네 따오네서나 소르데 셰바 인사나 베제 된제로 저 손난게 요래 이나다 다른 된조라 ngomba mawa sana mendo ngombe 대신 한 거는 저 디바르들 양 계좌 소야 뭐지 요래 고는 다 각샤 봉순당 대신 농다 뭐지 요래 너무 되네 지수나
So here, literally in the text, it says, that is to say, what is discarded is any disturbing emotion or subsidiary disturbing emotion which clings to a disturbing belief that conceptualizes to correct meaning as being something other, doubts it, holds it as a view, or wrongfully indulges in that belief. So, taking the mistaken, the disturbed belief as the basis, as the object. Here, literally, it says, clinging to that belief, having doubts with regard to that belief or from that belief, holding it as the viewpoint or wrongfully indulging in that belief. And this is how we can read it literally, that these engagements, like to cling to it, to doubt it, and so forth, refers to the belief as its basis, as its object. Now, Mipam Rinpoche, Vasubandhu, Asanga, and other commentators, they use exactly those words, but there are actually different kinds of interpretations. So one is, and these words themselves are not wrong, they just give room for different interpretations. And so in some of the greater commentaries on the Abhidhamma Samujaya, on the Gateway to Knowledge, these words appear in exactly that way. To that belief, then, or in that belief, then having clinging, doubt, and so forth. But it can also be understood as the clinging that comes from having that kind of belief, the doubts that come from having that kind of belief, and so forth, where then the object and that one clings to can still be another one, or is another one than the belief itself. So there are different ways of interpreting this statement here. And in the different commentaries, in the bigger commentaries, actually, this is addressed in much detail with a lot of discussion, a lot of anticipation of objections, and then according replies. So we can see it from there.
So then, that then 고름 가가로지 흉거는 마음바 고름 샴바 나신진의 해봐이나 네 따위네 라비온도잖아 데네로지로 고알랑 고고여래 제가 따왔네 세도잖아 대시 잡다 잡아 가요 말이 지부지자래 데 지다 타르달라서 봐 따와가요와 디당 현주 중위 네 전남당 대사변도 쓰그래 그는 가서 삼중 시에베가로 삼중 일 현주 편준 총망하든지 보내 규제를 쓰려 봐. 따왕아 보든 저다 현지 중화당 대사분기 규차도 되디 따위 내려서 사분남 규함 중심으로 따위 내려서 그래. 대다오 될라 아니 셴바당 대다오이 랑신될라 태좀도 사와서 대내로지니 대화로지 지그래.
Tawin ne.
Hola, tiene xianpa na tezum na tawi ne tang se lep songa. Tawi ne tang se nga tawi ne di kap kashi deshi nangbo kapsu nyung chengi tawa dene tawne ane tela shenpa tela tesum reshe nangdo dende ya nangkin yore singe shun ba dil nangkin tenzo ji ta tawne nguzin chata tena chikba re kanda ina tawne siddhi zana kasore tawa ngayi tang tenji yungwe ane che sekarwa semdang semjungi choy tenzo na te sabun ji cha tawne wa dila karisana labu karisan tawne labu yore suna tawne ane tako di kaangla shaa yondu ane ta deda wu tawu ne dinzula ane shenpa shokwa tang deda wu tawu ne la ane tesum sawa asana tsidi tawu ne sana kaangla shaa na yang koran rinpa ya kuchudwa ane tawu ne dinzu wala shaa bayi na galwa yore labna diya ngawa kaya ma re tawa dinzu rang la ane shenpa tang tawa dinzu negab dinzu la tesum sawa tang ane tesum saji hi kari re lam ane tawu ne dinzu rwa asa o tenze iji ane tsik del dang ane tes melo sama do ton la gawa kaya yo ma re tsik korim la ane sungdang de la tes ane tsoba roji lebu du ma do ba ton yin ne de la ane galwa kaya yo ma re
So the difference here actually lies in what is identified as the basis. So when and then the order in which the connected disturbing emotions here relate to the disturbed belief. So here it says, here we say, clings to, doubts it, and holds it as a viewpoint, right? This disturbed belief. And in some of the commentaries, the order is actually questioned of this, saying that first one holds it as a viewpoint, and then other things, because of the mind and mental states and the all accompanying mental states, the 5 ever-present mental states, then on the basis of those, then come the others, come the clinging to and the doubt of this viewpoint that comes from this viewpoint. So in one way of explaining it, we have the order as it is written here, where there is first the clinging, then the doubt, and then comes the holding as a viewpoint, or the wrong indulging in that belief. Or the order is turned around, saying no, the doubt, the clinging and the doubt are mental states that come together with, or come from that mistaken engagement, this wrongfully indulging in that belief, from holding it as a viewpoint. Once one holds it as a viewpoint, then one starts clinging to it. Then one develops doubt. And so some explain it the other way around. Others say, no, it's okay, we can explain it with first clinging, then doubt, and then we look back at what's the basis for that clinging and the doubt later. So we're leaving the order as it is said here. So it's just a question of the order in which these 3 discards are mentioned. Whether it's first a viewpoint that's explained as the basis, and on which then the other 2, clinging and doubt, arise, or whether first the clinging to and the doubt come, and then the basis for those is analyzed later, which is then the viewpoint, the holding of it as a viewpoint. So that's where the whole debate in this about this section lies, the problematic of that.
Dejala tawa tela lobar shubu nyomon dan nyenyon kanyin ba dan sondan doa. Ta tene tawa dan tawa nyenyin zo la, ta ngo zo lobar shuba de tawa gune shuba si lobar shuba la di zana tawa gune lobar shuba si ki yore. Nyomon dan nyenyon kanyin ba si di zana ta doja la soba den zo re. Yana tawa la lobar shuba si di zana tawa dan doja nipo de lobar shuba che di nyamdo ni sayo nyomomba da nyew nyomomba den samba nyamdo yos o tenne ji shedan che yungu yore ta kandar tenso che de zo kari chag yore nga zo namgyun uma sung den zo nam labgo yoba shebe kapsu koru sawa de takzin res jizu pungbar zin yoba tezi tela ngarzin yose gen yoba tonda dirang re doa pungba nga la nga da ngayir zin ba di kunde lang ba am di na nyamdo yobe semda sem jungsa na mendo di na nyamdo yobe kunda je cha yi nyomong ba tamje ta karere lamna ne kun tongbang re esa la bire kanyin ba tang so dire.
So whichever order we adopt here, we have this holding, we have the view or the belief, the mistaken belief, disturbed belief, and then we have the holding onto it as the viewpoint. And that is really a wrong engagement in reality. This is a wrong misunderstanding through which then the other afflictions that are connected to the holding of such a belief develop. And so in some cases, it's explained that the desire for that comes the desire is also mistaken engagement in the object, or in some cases explained that it's the desire that comes from the mistaken holding the viewpoint of the mistaken understanding, the disturbed belief. So in some cases it's explained that it's the mistaken belief, this disturbed belief, the wrong conceptualization of reality, that's the wrong engagement, and then the other things like desire based on that mistaken engagement, and sometimes it's desire itself would also be a direct mistaken engagement in reality, like a wrong way of interacting. So it's counted separately. In any case, these are dependent on a wrong engagement with reality. And those are the imputed disturbing emotions that are abandoned on the path of seeing. So specifically, when we follow the explanations of the Madhyamaka texts, there the root of samsara is the grasping to a self. So to misinterpret the five aggregates in terms of I and a mine, so grasping to an I and mine based on the five aggregates, then is the basis of samsara, and all the afflictive emotions that come along with that emerge from that first mistaken interpretation. The imputed I then are the imputed afflictions, and all of those are the discards on the path of seeing.
Tawa te kunne langbi lunga de le da ngen song we to pongam genjin ne tong pongwal 자오 당원법 저당 민다와디 어디를 연구해 현 페이지 더우더지라도 통금 통놈제보다 방정만 요몽바 망용 개발마도 막 요몽바 방 군다 방기 여버 시야를 제발해 다 저주로라 따와 대군의 랑바선 된지 따오거든 휴 원에 윌 템바실라 로버도 쇼바당 따와들 미비 도샤라서거든 요몽바 군다지 차 인송소아 와타 딘조지 군의 랑베 류가지 당 냉에는 소초발라 소바이나레 준타말라 소바이나 류가지 냉에는 딘조 트레디 레당 아니 명성송비 명성을 통감 계저스도서는 다 법에 강사데 레당 용몽기 왕기 아니 냐와이다 둔도숨 딘조를 싸워니나 계획 말해서 그래 그 딘조 트레디 다 대양 통남기 방자인 랍샤도와 통일 방법자로 랍샤도 뭔가 저는라 된다잖아요. 뭐 통방이나 인지 미니 용몽바 임베 차압사. 통방 뭔가 저기로라. 통방이나 용몽바 인고래. 마도바 류가게 레는조 통방 인성계제데 kelен 매 납샤기요래. 자 군두지로라 아니 또 가르스 그래서 덴바힐 로버토바지 로디 락 용도잖아. 거의 또블 중샤바지네 능아데 레든가 남남축이 매바차도 요래 나저 미 더지 우디 채서나 수부 구제자 대랑신 매바차로 와서 그래서 꼭 채는 수부 구제는 랑신 매바차로 행동기 싸워데 고소나 야가든지 로마든지 랑신이 감도 그래 뒤인데 싸워 녀몽바데 매바차인도 거의 또블 중샤바지 능아데 냉냉냉냉냉된 조다 디도 아니 능송송게 동알든도 선은 능송송 야랑신기니 다 몰람게 또비다 닝제옹게 계산은 대바좀비 로라 뭔바군도 로라 여가레데 레년용게 능송송도 깨야지 바발라 매스기래 뭔가 저기 아니 통남민 방자든도 산에 임바 얘기 말해
So it further says in the text, in addition, any action of body or speech motivated by such a belief, as well as the aggregates, elements, and sense sources of the lower realms, will be discarded by means of the path of seeing. And this is a point where there's really a distinction to the explanations from the Abhidhamma Kosha. So here, this is the Abhidhamma Samuccaya viewpoint, right? So what it says is that based on this mistaken view, based on the mistaken interpretation of the Four Noble Truths, we have this disturbed belief, and on the basis of that, we also then develop the imputed aspects of the other disturbing emotions, such as desire, attachment, and so on. And so based on those, we engage in actions of our body and speech. And so when this view has been eliminated, when the view has been, when this mistaken view has been eliminated, then with it fall away the disturbing emotions that are connected to it. And then likewise, one will not engage in the actions of one's body and speech anymore that are motivated by these disturbing emotions, and therefore one will also not be reborn in the lower realms anymore. So what the Abhidhamma Samuccaya says is that with the abandonment of the mistaken view of a self, then fall away all the things that ensue from it, like the actions of body and speech and the lower realms as well. So according to the Samuccaya, these are also discards. what are abandoned on the path of seeing. Now, in the explanation of the Abhidhamma Kosha, though, the general idea of the imputed disturbing emotions is the same. There's a different number of those that are being abandoned on the path of seeing, but the general idea is the same, that there are those that are based on the mistaken interpretation of the Four Noble Truths, and those that, so imputed by a mistaken view, then come the disturbing emotions. These are abandoned when seeing the reality of the Four Noble Truths. That is the same. That speaks about this imputed disturbing emotions. The number is different, but the principle is the same. Now, for the path of seeing, though, the Abhidhamma Kosha says it's only the disturbing emotions that are the discards. The acts of body and speech are not discards. They're not what is actually abandoned on the path of seeing, alongside with the afflictive emotions that are the imputed afflictive emotions, because they're based on that view of the mistaken conceptualization of the Four Noble Truths. And so this is where the difference lies. The Kosha says it's only the afflictions that are discards, while the Abhidhamma Samuccaya says that the mistaken interpretation, the mistaken conceptualization of the Four Noble Truths serves as the basis of all mistaken behavior, so the acts of body and speech. And when the mistaken conceptualization is eliminated on the path of seeing, then also the acts motivated by that of body and speech will be eliminated. And so that whole accumulation of karma of body and speech falls away with it, and therefore one will not be reborn in the lower realms or due to that kind of karma either. And the idea is that if one stops breathing, for example, when the main thing of being alive, the breathing, falls away, then just by eliminating the breathing, then all movement of the body will also cease, then the entire body will die, right? Or if we cut the main root or the main trunk of a tree, then we cut the main life source of the tree, but not only the main part of the tree will die, but then also all the branches will also die. So given that kind of logic, then the experience of the lower realms and so forth will also fall away, as the main cause for it, the grasping to self, or the mistaken engagement, the mistaken conceptualization of the Four Noble Truths, is eliminated. And so they say this is also an abandonment, this is also what is discarded on the path of seeing, while the Abhidhamma Kosha says no, we only speak about the afflictive emotions as discards and not any of the related stuff. So I will stop here for today, and let's recite the dedication and aspiration prayers together now.
Sonam de damje zebani tone nyebe dana bamje tega naje balam jobai sebe zole doa dolwarajo chanjo zemjo remboje Maje panam kejoruji Keba nyamba meba yang Kone kondo belwara jo. Lazo ni kozoto jana. Ni sanye jagi.
So please all take good care of yourselves and see you tomorrow. Lasso, Kempula. Cheerio. You will get the notes from today and from yesterday all together today. I'm sorry I didn't complete them yesterday. Late class. You will get everything today or before class tomorrow. And I don't know whether you saw the news already. Check the newsletter carefully if you make any plans for next semester, please. And yes, that's all I have to say for now.
So I see we're on online till December of this happy year. Is that right?
Yes.
I think it's
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, it's as much as I would like to see everyone on campus. I think this is the only decision that they could take at the moment.
That's
And
right.
it's good that we know it so early so we can make all the plans. Yeah.
Typically, it's just more of the same.
Yeah, but like whether people are coming back or not and what we're doing. So
I think it's. I'm not going to go to the States in May. It would just be crazy.
yes, I think my parents will have to wait for me a little bit longer too. But yeah, I just wanted to, I didn't see it. I saw it in an extra email that we got, like the faculty members got. I didn't see it from the email of the newsletter directly. So I just wanted to make sure everyone checks the newsletter carefully to read the information about next academic year.
Good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So
when would you like to talk?
we can, I'll hang up and then we can talk separately. Okay. Is there anything else? No. Does anyone have a question? Otherwise, that's it for today.
People are still here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inka.
Thank you, Moon.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Miri, I need to talk to you now.
Oh, now I see at the bottom of the screen, people's faces, people's things disappear.
Yeah.
But in the middle part of the screen, all I see is your